Sometime within the next minute or so, somewhere on the planet, another big idea is being born. It might be a new song, a new product, who knows? And who knows how to make this idea grow and introduce it to the world? Let's find out. Welcome to The Next Big Idea with your host, Peter Gantner. The program is sponsored by kulaBrands, dedicated to help with branding, funding, and marketing the next big idea. And if that idea is yours, you want to pay particular attention to the particulars. Peter and his co-hosts and guests will explain just how it's done. If you happen to be an investor or just an interested party, you could benefit from the efforts of kulaBrands. You could become a part of their community of folks who want to help others and make money in the process. If that sparks your curiosity or wets your whistle, sit up and take notice. kulaBrands presents Peter Gantner and his guests on The Next Big Idea.
Hello, everybody. This is Peter Gantner, your host of The Next Big Idea. And, of course, I have my co-host, Cory Moran.
Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
And my other co-host, Deb Caswell.
Hey, everybody. Nice to see you again.
Guys, we do not have a guest today on the show, but we're going to be talking about something extremely important. That is one of the 3 Ps that it really takes to be an entrepreneur. The first one, of course, is persistence. You got to have drive. You got to have grit. You got to be somebody who does not quit no matter what. You have to be tough, right? Ready for this amazing roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship. The second thing you need to have is patience. Patience to get stuff in place. Patience to, be able to wait for deals to come across. Impatience is one of the things that will cost you more opportunity than anything else in life. But the third P is problem solving. This is an absolute must if you are going to build a successful business that becomes any type of a national or global brand. Problem solving is huge. That is what we're going to cover today on this show, is what does it take to be a problem solving. So, Deb and Cory, I believe that we have been working together now for a solid 4 years, okay? Can you guys kind of go through your experience, being that I am an entrepreneur, and I actually, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, or the audience set them straight, is that is one of my strengths as a business person, is this ability to figure out solutions very quickly, to not get caught and bogged down in the problem, but how do we solve it? How do we go beyond that point? So if you guys can experience maybe a little bit of some of your experience before coming to work and being part of kulaBrands and that whole process there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Working for you, it's completely different in that when something happens, when there's a problem, you want the solution when we bring the problem to you. You want us to already work out what we think the solution might be. And in that way, you've allowed us to sort of own the solution, right? Be a part of it. Cory, what were your thoughts on that?
Knowledge is power, right? And before I came to kulaBrands, but pre this whole adventure, it was always roadblocks, and it was always hurry up to do this, and let's create this pathway. But there was always a roadblock, and there was always that stopping point. So, working with you, Peter, and the team, it's now very, it's very path oriented, but it's also being empowered. And what you do for entrepreneurs is you empower them to have the space to grow into a problem solver and a solution creator. And so my personal journey has, in a short 4 years, has, in my opinion, from what I can feel, is light years in being able to take initiative, delegate, and be organized, and have the knowledge enough to be able to create solutions. And as an entrepreneur, most of my life, that is one of the most powerful tools and a very freeing skill set I can own today.
Well, and I think from a perspective of the person, so there's a couple things. One is when a problem comes up, first of all, most people spend way too much time focusing on the problem than the solution. Secondly, they spend so much time looking for whose fault it was, right? I didn't do this. It must be somebody else's fault, or who's to blame. There's always, and you always want to come back and figure out what went wrong. But the first number one priority is solving the problem. You can always come back and look back and say, okay, where did our system break down? Where did it did? So one of the keys to being a problem solver, first of all, is to put out of your mind whose fault is it, right? And then also to stop trying to think, well, you come up with the solution. No, you come up with the solution. It's first of all, you take responsibility that there needs to be a solution to the problem, okay? And I am in charge of doing that myself. And so that's where Deb talked about empowering. I don't bring me all the problems for me to solve. Think about it yourself. Okay, we have a problem. What's the solution? Start working through that process. Then even if you can't come up with it, when you come to the team, when you come to that leader, you have already begun to, so you can share what you're thinking about doing, and then they can one up that, right? It's this growth process of putting together things and moving them in that direction. And by the way, guys, if it is truly a problem, this is a philosophy that I moved through in my life. If it is a problem, there is absolutely a solution. If it is not a solution, it's a fact. Learn to live with it. It's done. But all problems have solutions. That is why they are called a problem, because there is a solution, something that can be done about it. It just needs to be there. The other side of this is
on the accountability piece. That was the number one key thing that I've learned through working with kulaBrands, with you personally. And that is just to be accountable. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter who caused the problem. Now, coming through corporate America, what I learned at a very young age was that before you tell anybody there's a problem, you figure out whose fault it was, you figure out who the scapegoat is, and you point your finger at that person to make sure they take the heat, which was horrible. I never liked it.
The most played game in the world, right? Played more than Monopoly, played more than any other game.
Yes.
Is a blame game, right?
Yes.
It is. Oh my goodness. And there are some people that are masters at the blame game, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's no good. So I want to thank you for that for sure. I think it's really important, that piece. And the stepping on other people to get to the top. That's the other thing that you find in other companies that I appreciate the way you work, because I don't feel like I just take responsibility for what I've done and find the solution, move forward from there.
Yeah, and I think so. Being a good problem solver is keeping your eye focused on what ultimately we are trying to accomplish, right? What is it really? Are we here? Are we here to, solve? And you're not actually there to solve the problem. You need to solve the problem so you can get to that destination of building a brand, having a successful product, being in the marketplace, making millions of dollars. By the way, guys, there's nothing wrong with your goal to become wealthy, to be an entrepreneur, to start a company. It doesn't necessarily have to be to save the world. It can be simply, I want to be rich, so I'm going to solve a problem. I'm going to create value. The reason why there are billionaires in the world today, okay, is because those people solve problems for billions of people. Facebook services billions of people. Microsoft, hundreds of millions of businesses at home. Apple, the same thing. The people that are becoming wealthy today, guys, are not stealing it from you. They're not stealing it from your friend or your neighbor. We're in a world today where we get wealthy by creating value for other people. And so having an understanding what it is that I'm going to accomplish makes it much easier for you to say, okay, the problem doesn't matter. What matters is the solution. Why? Because the problem will never get us to our end goal. A solution will get us to our end goal, and it will get us there much faster. So if you're on here right now going, oh, this sounds amazing. How do I become a problem solver? We're going to cover that in the show. We're going to start talking about that. But here's a real key, guys. I did not start out life as a problem solver. I started out life just like most people, and I'm telling you right now, most people are problem people, meaning they focus more time on the problem, and it may be a day, it may be a minute, maybe eventually they may get to a solution, but they spend so much time that if you looked at it from a perspective of percentage, they spend 90% of their time focusing on the problem, 10% on the solution. You need to switch that around. 10% on the problem, 90% on the solution. Go ahead, Cory.
And Peter, a lot of people that are listening got to think about something too. Is there's a reason why somebody in their journey of entrepreneurship in their business or their company, there's a reason that they may not have this information or have ever realized this information. Because as you know, if you're going to want to be successful in life, you want to surround yourself with the successful people. We are the 5 people we hang around with, right? So if you're surrounding yourself with successful solution creators, inevitably you become one yourself. And you know, I've seen a lot of business. I've been a part of a lot of companies and leaders and stuff like that. You know, this really is a place where you can be surrounded by not only 5 but hundreds of thousands of people that have become a part of this skill set.
So guys, we are coming up on the end of this segment. The great part is we have 3 more segments to go, and we are going to dig deep into this and help you go from a problem person to a solution-oriented person. We will be back after the break.
You're tuned in to Better Living Radio, streaming worldwide across the internet, and you're listening to entrepreneur and thought processor Peter Gantner on The Next Big Idea. Stay tuned. Peter will be right back. You may have heard Jackie Simmons on Better Living Radio. If so, you know that she's full of sage advice and fun ways to view the world that keep your stress levels under control. You may not know that Jackie also offers webinars and trainings on timely topics that touch the most important and sensitive areas of our lives. For your business, there's how to sell with confidence and ease, and the 4 keys of effective public speaking. Both are jam-packed with the tools you need to be seen, be heard, and be profitable. Bringing it closer to home, Jackie shares what she's learned as the mother of a teen suicide attempt survivor in How to End the Teen Suicide Epidemic. In this presentation, Jackie shares the 6 key indicators that your loved one may be at risk and the 6 simple steps anyone can take to mitigate that risk. To see what's coming next and save your seat, visit mindsetseminars.com. Better Living Radio is on the air, and yes, it's everywhere around the world. Are you wondering, hey, what's the big idea? Well, funny you should ask. Our show is called The Next Big Idea with Peter Gantner. In fact, we're back with more on Better Living Radio.
Guys, we are back after that quick break. We are talking today about becoming one of the 3 Ps of entrepreneurship, which is a problem solver, right? Somebody who does not focus on the problem, but solves it, solution oriented. So one of the things is, guys, I was saying in the last segment, I didn't start this way. I became it because I realized that it was extremely important. And there were some steps that I took to get there. One of those steps is you must believe in human potential. You must believe that the human mind, and not just yours, but everybody's, can and has the ability to solve problems. And the reason why you must believe everybody is because then that says that for sure, positively, you have the ability. You just haven't harnessed it yet, or maybe exercise it. By the way, the mind is like any other muscle. The more you use it, the better it becomes. I believe that genius really comes from people who continue to use their mind all the time. They're thinkers. So in life, we put our mind kind of on park, and maybe we watch a movie or we do stuff, but there are people that are continually thinking, and so they're continually exercising their mind. So they end up being like Lou Ferrigno, but not by muscles, but by the thought process of their mind and what they're doing. So you have to believe in human potential. The second side of it is a positive attitude. A negative attitude, of course, is going to focus on the negative. What is the negative? The negative is the problem. The solution is the positive. So you have to come from a positive perspective. Now you might say, well, I'm not a positive person. Great. Let's exercise and become that positive person, right? And not today. This is a process. We do not expect you to listen to this radio show and say, oh, okay, I've gone from a focusing on problems to focusing on the solution. That is not going to take. I would say that my journey to do this was probably a good 5 to 10 years. That didn't mean I didn't start improving in the first week and first month and first type of things. But for me to really master this technique, it took me about 5 to 10 years to say, here's who I am and here's what I do, and to be able to function and operate that way. But here's the thing. Even if it takes you, let's say you're faster than me, it takes 2 or 3 years for you to get it down pat. It is your path to success. You can use it along the way and then eventually get really good at it. And then get the full benefit of it. But again, you can start getting benefits from this right away. But it's essential for you to move it. So you don't have to say, well, I'll start my business in 3 to 5 years when I get it down pat. I'm saying you can start today, start focusing on some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, and have those kind of coincide together. Cory, you wanted to say something?
And I think you're hitting on a really good point here, Peter, is when you talk about the belief part, it's got to all start with believing in yourself, believing in the process you're in. And what I caught there through what you were saying is, eventually down the road, you're going to be that person. The key word in this is having that consistency to create that habit, especially the very beginning of the process. So you're believing, you're having a positive attitude. Even your positive attitude becomes a habitual act within yourself. So you combine those simple steps and you're creating a formula, a success plan for all areas of your life, whatever it's, financially, mentally, spiritually, physically, whatever that looks like. You can be the Lou Ferrigno of your mental capacity and your physical capacity. But, ultimately, it's the belief, the positive attitude, you're setting goals, but you got to stay consistent. And that's the part I think, you were hitting home about. So I love that. Awesome.
So really, guys, when it comes down to, and Cory hit on the thought process, right? So here's the thing. And these things get me. So you say, hey, how are you doing? I'm hanging in there. What does that mean? Really, when you think about the picture of hanging in there, really, do you think of yourself hanging on like a monkey bar and your arms are eventually getting tired and you're going to be ready to let go? And again, these are small things, and somebody go, these guys are crazy. That's not going to make a difference. I'm telling you, hanging in there to me is somebody white knuckling, hanging onto the side of the cliff. And if they let go, they're going to die, right? I'm barely getting there. I'm barely making it when you say hanging in there. So you need to change that. I'm doing great. I'm doing okay. I'm moving in the right direction. I'm getting better every day. You don't have to say you're fantastic or terrific. You can just simply say I'm getting better every day, or I'm moving in the right direction. There's lots of things that you don't have to over exaggerate and go there, that eventually moving in the right direction can become I'm doing fantastic, I'm doing terrific.
Something I'd like to say about that too, Peter, is when somebody asks you how you're doing, they're not really looking for somebody to have a long conversation with about how they're really doing, especially if you're in a bad place. And the reason I say this is because you'll find that entrepreneurship is all about relationships, right? It's about building relationships. So are you going to build a relationship with somebody talking about everything that's going terrible in your life? Or are you going to build a better relationship with them if you can find something that you have in common to focus on what's great about it, right? So coming back with fantastic, even when you're not feeling fantastic on the inside, it will make you start feeling fantastic. So it's all about getting that feeling first and then moving on the feeling.
So we're as people about telling stories, right? So are you telling a positive story or a negative story? If you tell a negative story, what's an outcome? If you watch a movie and it's a let's say a thriller movie, right, where somebody's going to have something negative happen to them, the story plays out till the end of the story with something negative happening. if you're telling positive stories, then you can get to that rainbow, unicorns, and sunshine, right? Which we've mentioned in past shows, right? So again, it's what stories are you telling yourself? And guys, this all adds up to you a problem solver. Because if you're always talking about I'm hanging in there, you can hang in there and have problems and have them persist, and you can still hang in there. But if you're moving towards terrific, fantastic, wanting a better life, then your mind, your subconscious says, well, I got to solve these problems because he can't be in the state, or she can't be in, or they cannot be in the state of fantastic if they have problems. So holy mackerel, I've got to solve things in order to get to the state in which I'm trying to get to. Go ahead, Cory or Deb. You got anything on that, guys?
Yeah, I just wanted to say the story that we tell ourselves, the story that we're constantly thinking about is the story, just like you said, that continues to play out over and over. So you have to change your story. And I lived this. I went through some pretty rough times. And it was prolonged. It was a couple of years of really hard times. And when I look back on that,
if you don't mind, give that a little context. Tell the audience what you went through, because you're a host. If you don't mind, as much as you're tell them what you went through, because from your perspective, you've overcome a giant hurdle, right?
You bet. So yeah. Back in 2013, I was already starting into some financial issues because I was unable to kind of keep working at the job that I was in. But what happened was we found that I had a brain tumor that had to be removed. And so while having a brain tumor removed, while going through a financial hardship, plus, I had, my daughter had Down syndrome. So now I'm learning about this, this whole new world. So just a lot of things, just kind of happened all at the same time. I had a tumor that was, growing in my head and causing some strife. I had that removed. And what happened was we found that I was actually using that part of my brain. Who knew, right? Who knew? So coming out of brain surgery, and this was totally, I guess, unexpected. I don't know. For me, it was unexpected that there was just a lot of things that I couldn't do anymore. I had to relearn a lot of things. I had to go to brain injury rehab for a very long time, 6.5 hours a day. And it was the toughest time of my life, probably. But in that, so after the brain tumor is removed, now I'm learning to live with this brain operating in the way that it's operating now, which was totally different. So many things that I couldn't do. And I got stuck in my story. So I got stuck telling the story of lack, right? Financial hardship, telling a story of my brain doesn't work. It's not, it's not working. This is hard, right? Telling the story over and over and over again. And it wasn't until Peter, you know what? I think it was after I met you that I discovered that if I just changed my story, and you gave me so much confidence in myself, and I realized if I could just change my story, change the way I was telling it, I would feel better. And I did. I started to feel better. And over time, I started to be better. Like my brain was
I think your mom
healing.
recognized that, right? We were at an event together. She came up and thanked us for giving you opportunity, because she had seen how much progress you were making of just simply having somebody believe in you. You always had that ability, even with a piece of your brain missing, you still, because we started this out that all human potential, every human has the ability to solve problems and get back on it. Comes to find out with your situation, you don't even need all of your brain to do it, right? So that is how powerful the human mind is. Because I got to tell you, Deb has become an incredible problem solver. It is a completely different relationship now than when she came to us. And now she's coming to me and saying, hey, Peter, here's what's going on. And here's a solution. This is what I think we can do. So in all situations, guys, you can figure this out. We're coming up on the end of this segment. Good thing is, though, we have 2 more segments left. I love this subject. We're going to dig in more after the break. We'll be right back.
So are you wondering where the next big idea will come from? Well, you'll hear about it first here at Better Living Radio. See, this is the show called The Next Big Idea. Maybe you got the next big idea, or maybe you just like to make some money from it. Peter Gantner will explain when we come back on Better Living Radio.
What are you going to do with your old car? You can try selling it, you could junk it, or you can donate it to Heritage for the Blind. Your car will be towed away for free, and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-639-8620. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats. It doesn't matter if your vehicle runs or not. It'll be towed away for free, and you'll be supporting those that need help. Heritage for the Blind is a nonprofit organization that helps the visually impaired live fuller lives. Call right now to donate your car. And as a special thank you for calling, you'll receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to many exciting locations. Call Heritage for the Blind right now. Call 1-800-639-8620. Donating is easy, and your vehicle is towed away for free. Plus, you'll get a free vacation voucher. Call now, 1-800-639-8620. That's 1-800-639-8620.
I was 35 when my life and addiction started to spiral out of control. My ex-husband threatened to take our children away from me. I felt hopeless. He called Elite Rehab Placement because I couldn't make the call. I was ashamed. I was given skills to manage my sadness and my anger, and more importantly, I'm 3.5 years sober. I'm so grateful for all their help. And all it took was making one phone call.
Elite Rehab can help you start to break your addiction problem and get sober in as little as 7 days. And we'll work with your insurance provider to help cover the costs. Plus, we have travel assistance programs to get you here by plane or train. Make this free call right now to learn more. 800-918-1376. 800-918-1376. 800-918-1376. That's 800-918-1376.
Welcome back to Better Living Radio and this amazing idea for a radio show. It's called The Next Big Idea. Rather ironic, wouldn't you say? Hey, if you've got an idea, you might want to talk with host Peter Gantner or one of his guests here at Better Living Radio. Oh, look, here they come now.
We are back with the next big idea, and our subject today is becoming a problem solver, right? Somebody who solves anything that comes into their picture. We've talked a little bit about the 3 P's of being an entrepreneur: persistence, patience, and then problem solving. Moving this stuff forward and going from there. So far we've covered the blame game, right? The fact that you have the ability to do this, because all human beings have the ability, the creativeness to solve problems. By the way, guys, solving a problem is connecting to the creative part of your brain, the ability to come up with ideas, concepts, and things that can then come up with it. And it's simple, right? So I'll give you a very simple one. Where do you want to go eat, honey? I don't care. Okay. You can go back and forth and go, well, I don't care either. Or you can say, okay, let's go into my creative brain. What kind of food does my spouse really like? Oh, Italian food. Okay. So great. Let's go to the Italian restaurant. That's a very simple. And by the way, that's where we start. Simple. We're not going to ask you to solve the problem of cancer. We're not going to ask you to solve world hunger. Let's start in our process of becoming a problem solver in very, very simple things. Me and my wife have done this before. Well, let's go to a movie, honey. Well, what movie you want to go see? I don't care. Well, I don't care either. At some point, somebody's got to make a decision and stop going back and forth. Corey, Deb, you guys ever go through these things where you go back and forth about 6 times, 7 times with, I don't care, I don't care either, I don't care. Well, then let's go.
All the time, man. All the time. You made a fantastic conversation starting point there with exactly that. Everything in your life comes down to a decision, right? And everything is based on a decision. So when you're not able to be a problem solver, your indecision becomes a decision. And through that, you go in this relentless circle of not creating progress, which, another P that comes out of this is progress. And And being able to make a decision, a split decision, and the more you create this consistency with what we're talking about here, the more ability you have to make a split decision and a good decision every time. So that creates the progress, which, of course, creates everything else we're talking about here. But yeah, funny you mentioned that, because I see it happen around me all the time as well.
Well, I got to tell you, buddy, I just crossed out the 3 P's, made it the 4 P's, and wrote progress here. So we're up to the 4 P's of being an entrepreneur, right? So thank you for that. Yeah, and I've been in the situation too, and you go back and forth. It doesn't get. Eventually, someone says, "Okay, well, let's just not go out," right? Well, that's not healthy for your relationship. So being in those situations, if you can get the small things in life, focus on small things. So I'll tell you, my journey started. I just wanted to become a problem solver. And the first time I went out, I started driving, and I actually got a flat tire. Okay. Now, normally flat tire, you're upset, you're aggravated, you're kicking the side of the car, you're in a panic. And by the way, this was before everybody had cell phones, right? So there's not, let me get out my cell phone and call. This is a big issue. So the first thing that I did is I thought to myself, wait a minute, what am I upset about? I know positively in my mind that if I wouldn't have gotten this flat tire, I would have gotten hit by a train about 6 blocks from now. I started to switch it from the tire situation being a negative to the tire situation actually being still a problem, because I got to get the tire fixed, but it was actually from a beneficial standpoint, right? So now all of a sudden it was like, okay, well, now let me just change the tire, because it wasn't this earth-ending, terrible thing that now I was going to be late for a meeting, because I was going to be late for a meeting, because of course I was on my way to do work, business. That's what I love to do. I just changed my thought process. That then allowed me to get the tire changed faster, solve the problem, get back on the road, be less late for my meeting, and then move through that process, because ultimately that is your goal. A lot of people will get to solutions, but they get to solutions 2 hours later, 5 hours later, 3 days later. And the longer that the problem exists and it's in there, the harder it is, or the more it takes to solve it, right? The shorter you can solve it, then the easier it is to solve, the less damage that it's done. I'll use an example right now of the pandemic we're going in. The faster we can solve how we can all still be together and not spread the disease, the faster we get back to it, the less damage or cause, the less deaths, the less everything else. So being a problem solver means you're not stopping harm from happening, but you're reducing the amount of harm that will take place. And so the idea of this is you can't focus on the harm that's happening, because if you do, it doesn't give you the ability. Your mind can't think about people having a disastrous thing happen to them and a solution at the same time. So you've got to switch the framework of your mind to get on that side of it. Cory, go ahead, buddy.
And I think, yeah, I'm sorry, but I think we're going to have to add another P here, Peter. Well, maybe another one for Peter, but another P here, which is perspective. And you touched on that with, when you're making these decisions and you start getting better at it and you start creating solutions, you have a positive attitude, your perspective on moment to moment happenings changes. And once your perspective changes, when you flip it from a negative to a constructive positive, and you start looking at things from the lighter side and how to create things out of what somebody would perceive as a horrible or a tragic or an unfair situation, you use that P in perspective to create progress and to create problem solving. And I think that's just a really important piece. And I think we're up to 5 Ps.
I think we're up to 5 Ps. I think we should add a 6th P, maybe pie, and then that would be like the icing on the cake or whatever it is, right? So maybe we'll go with 6 Ps, but we're probably going to come up with some more Ps. At the end of the day, the last one on the list, we'll put pie, because I like cherry and blueberry pie.
Right,
and that
with
would
a
be
little
kind of
ice
the
cream.
reward.
I love that. Peter, you talked earlier about getting stuck at that light and changing your perspective there. One of the things with me is when I was a young driver, I was always the one that wanted to be in front of everybody. So nobody could pass me. And if they did, they're being rude, right? What's wrong with that person right there? So I was that person. I'm not proud of it, but I was racing constantly to get from one place to the next. And now, and I don't know when it changed with me, but somewhere along the line, I decided, you know what, instead of letting this boil my blood for no reason, that somebody's just powered past me and maybe cut me off or whatever, I changed my perspective to believing that the person driving that car was on their way to their child who was gravely ill, and they needed to get there as quickly as they could. So they've cut me off. Maybe it almost caused an accident. It didn't. Everybody's safe. But I always give that other person the benefit of the doubt that there's something so important that they need to get in front of me. They need to get there. And it has changed everything for me. I can go from A to B in my car, totally relaxed, totally chill, and actually enjoy my time from getting from A to B where I didn't enjoy it before.
Well, and that's exactly where I was at. So there's a story out there. I don't remember who told it, but it was a story of a man that's on a bus or a subway or something. And the gentleman's sitting there and he has a kid with him, and the kid's being bratty and obnoxious and running up and down the aisles and stuff. Eventually he gets tired of it. He turns to the guy and kind of scolds him for his child. And the gentleman says, "I'm so sorry. We just left the hospital and the mother had passed away," right? And so that really changed his perspective. And that is important, guys, to think. It's not, the world does not revolve around us. We are part of the world. We revolve with the world. And so there are stuff that's happening with people. As Deb said, maybe they are late for work. Maybe they're going to get fired if they don't get there. Maybe they're on their way to court. Or maybe they're trying to get their, somebody else is in the car and they're having a baby in the back seat, right? If you can start to do that, you lower your anger level. It is very, very hard to solve problems when you are angry, because that is such an overwhelming emotion that it sucks up every bit of your brain power. So you have to begin to learn to calm down. It's not the end of the world, right? This problem is not going to end you, especially if you solve the problem. If you come up with the right solution, then everything is over. You can overcome everything. If you can't overcome it and there's not a solution, it's a fact, so live with it, right? It's going to just happen in its way. There always is a solution. So calm yourself down, get that right perspective, start to focus on solving the problem, and then that will lead you to progress towards the goal, which is to what? Become wealthy, get your product to the marketplace, get customers, whatever that may be. So it's very, very important. What we're talking about here, guys, is absolute paramount if you are going to enter the world of entrepreneurship. I think it's paramount in all of life. I have a great relationship with my wife, with my kids, and it's because I implement this solving problems in my mind when I'm dealing with them as well, right? So if my kids do something, right, they wreck the car, is it going to do any good for me to get mad at them? No. What's the solution? How do we get it fixed? Do we need to report it to the insurance company? Can we just pay for it and not have to worry about the insurance company because it's going to make my insurance rates go up? Getting to the root of the problem will improve every single part of your life. We're coming up on the end of this segment, guys. We're going to be back for a final segment on problem solving. Please come back, see us after this break.
You're tuned in to Better Living Radio, streaming worldwide across the internet, and you're listening to entrepreneur and thought processor Peter Gantner on the next big idea. Stay tuned. Peter will be right back. You've heard it said right here, you can't move gigantic boulders unless you've got some kind of leverage. Like a crowbar positioned in just the right spot. With enough leverage, you can multiply your strength and move mountains. The idea applies to investing too. Think of it. How'd you like to own companies like Roku or MasterCard or Raytheon and put down as little as 10% to unlock the treasure chest of unlimited upside gains while drastically reducing your risk, and do it all with zero borrowing cost? You just need that leverage and a little know-how. So Dan Frischberg Frischberg and the entire Money Man team are making that possible. They're handing you your very own investment crowbar in special step-by-step, click-by-click instructional videos called the Layaway Option Service. It's for beginners and pros alike. Look, if you want to make real money, you owe it to yourself to take advantage of this once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity. It's your chance to see the results for yourself. The cost is next to nothing, and look what's waiting for you. Generally, you'll get 3 detailed trades each week, quality, actionable trades. You get detailed instructions on buying and selling specific put and call options. The Layaway Option Service shares specific underlying stocks, expiration dates, strike prices, and shows you how much money you could make instantly. It's Dan Frischberg's proven money-making discipline that over 50 years has made a lot of people rich. Lots of other benefits are waiting for you too, along with these special step-by-step, click-by-click instructional videos. The Layaway Option Service. Too much to detail here, but it's all right there at themoneyman.com. Themoneyman.com. Better Living Radio is on the air, and yes, it's everywhere around the world. Are you wondering, hey, what's the big idea? Oh, funny you should ask. Our show is called The Next Big Idea with Peter Gantner. In fact, we're back with more on Better Living Radio.
We are back with the final segment of The Next Big Idea, and we've been talking about, we started out the show with the 3 Ps. We're now up to the 5 Ps. If you add pie to it, it's the 6 Ps right now. Who knows if we're going to get to 7 or 6 Ps by the end of this segment here. So what we've been essentially talking about is how do you become somebody who really has the ability to focus on the solution of any problem that comes up and do it right away. So one of the things that I want to make sure that you understand is that even though I'm really good at this, there are still times when I'm tired, distracted, overwhelmed, where even myself, who's been doing this purposefully for the last couple decades, there's even time when I fall into a trap and you're like, wait a minute, I keep thinking about the problem instead of what is the solution, right? So you are probably from time to time, especially if you're just getting into this, you will fail at it, right? You just have to say, oh, wait a minute, I'm failing. I'm focusing on the problem. What's the solution? Just shift those gears and get back into it. The goal is not to become an instant solver. The goal is to lower the time that it takes now for you to go from problem to solution. Might be right now it takes you a day. If you can get that down to 24 hours or 23 hours versus 24 hours, you're an hour better off and you're going to continue and improve. Eventually the time though is to get to where it's close to instantaneous. I don't think you can have, and maybe you guys can give me your perspective on this, I don't think you can have a major issue happen. Let's use, just for basic purposes, an auto accident. You're driving down the road, either you slam into somebody or somebody slams into you. It's very hard at that moment of impact to go, oh, what's the solution? You are going to go, oh my goodness, I just got hit. Oh, look at my car. You're going to go a little bit into that problem side of things, but then catching it, wait a minute, I recognize that I'm focusing, that the problem is forefront. What is the solution? And of course, we all like to tell good stories after something happens. Once you said problem, oh, solution, solved it, then you can go tell the story to all your friends of how you almost got killed or almost this happened or almost that happened or, you know, the whole story side of things. But you really want to get on.
That really leads us into something that I wanted to talk about in this segment, and that is gratitude, which might be the next P, maybe finding your purpose, right, through gratitude. I don't know, maybe. Anyway, so when something happens, if you can shift your perception, if you can shift into, okay, wow, look at, I'm still breathing. I'm grateful that, this didn't happen. I'm grateful for where I am right now in this moment. And I think for me, years ago, I learned that if I would, waking up in the morning, if the first thing my first thoughts are, what am I grateful for today? And when you're in a real funk, sometimes the only thing is that I have breath. I have breath, right? I am breathing. And you start with that, and you've got this feeling now that comes over you about being so grateful for that. And then you can think of so many other things to be grateful for. But when that accident happens, like you're talking about there in that example, instead of focusing on all of the problem, how horrible it is, focus on what is right in the moment. And that will press you forward into finding the solution, becoming a problem solver.
Well, excellent point. And so there are a type of people, a group of people out there, victims, right? So people that have this victim mentality. Victim mentality people need to have problems, and they don't want solutions, because that's the problems that make them the victim, that allow them then to say, oh, feel sorry for me, feel bad for me, those type of things. So that is one of the things you need to examine. Are you somebody who's stuck in that victim mentality? And that is definitely something that you're going to have to move forward to. And gratitude is extremely important in our lives. Being grateful in relationships, in business, in everything else. If you can focus on what you're grateful on, then hatred, victimism, all these negative emotions are easier to keep out of your life. Not completely, but most of the way, right? Then now you can say, okay, what's the solution? How do I solve this? How do I move this forward? And how do I get to that end goal? I'm grateful for where I'm at right now, but I'm going to even be more grateful when I reach these goals and these different things, right? So there's levels of gratitude. You don't have to be completely, it's not like, oh my goodness, my life is so amazing. I'm grateful for where I'm at right now, and I'm moving towards it. And the more grateful you are where you're at right now, the easier it's going to be to move to there. And also, there are people, I'm miserable, I'm going to drive my way to success. Guess what? Those are the wealthy people that are miserable when they're wealthy. Because they were miserable here. It was the misery that drove them to success. So they take that misery with them. That's why what you want to drive you to success is gratitude, gratefulness, this whole mindset that we're talking about, with these, I think we're up to 6 P's now, right? So we've got persistence, we've got patience, we've got problem solving, progress, perspective, and purpose. That is the reason why you want to be in that way, because if you're miserable down here, you're going to be miserable up there, and that's ultimately not the goal. I got to tell you, I think it's worse to be a wealthy person who's miserable than anything, because you have the resources, you have the ability to have a wonderful life, but yet you can't. It's almost like you've already won the lottery, but you can't cash it in, right? It's that misery, it's that problem of doing that, moving that forward. So, okay, so you want to become a problem solver. So the first thing is you've got to recognize when you're thinking about the problem, right? And say, oh, I need to switch gears and think about the solution. You need to have a positive attitude. You cannot be a victim. You need to believe that you as a human have the potential to solve problems. And then, of course, come from the basis. If there is a problem, there absolutely is a solution. There's no doubt about it. Could be big. It could be difficult. One of the things that got me to this point is I was talking with a gentleman by the name of Hassan Woods, and he was talking about problems and us having a choice, right? And this is from the choice perspective. And he said, hey, listen, if I take a gun to your head and I say, you can either do this or I'm going to shoot you, do you still have a choice? Yeah, you absolutely do. The results of that choice may not be what you want, right? But you still do have a choice. It's the same way. He said, well, then what if I put it to your child's head or your wife's head, right? And this is something really heavy to think about. And if you do this, I won't shoot. And if you do this, I will shoot. There is still a choice in that situation. So in all situations in life, we have a choice. It may not be a choice that we like, but we still do have that choice to decide. And so the reason why I bring that up is the choice to be positive, guys, it is a choice. You're a victim of yourself because you're choosing to think negative and about problems and about that. You can switch that around and go to the positive simply through that thought process of doing that. So we talked about belief, we talked about being positive, and then we also talked about that you're not going to be perfect at this, and it's okay, that your goal is not to instantly learn to be a solver, a solutions person. I don't want to call it problem solving because it has the problem in it. We're going to take that out of the conversation. So there's a problem person and then somebody who solves things, right? A solutions person. We want to move from being a problem person to a solution problem and put our mind in the right perspective when it comes to that. So,
and Peter, you've talked about this before, that, you know, a lot of times because with what you do currently, you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and not everything is rosy all the time for these entrepreneurs. In fact, there's some times that it's pretty ugly what's happening with the entrepreneurs, right? In their business, in the things they thought was going to happen, it's not happening. And you've said it before, you'll still talk about the amazing things that because you're always so focused on where we're headed instead of on the problem. And you've taken flack for that, Peter. You've taken flack for that. So talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, look, not everybody understands. Again, we talked about people looking for someone to blame. A situation comes up, villainizing someone. I think we've all been in a point where we were in a situation where something happens and another party villainizes you in order to justify their thought process. We are running out of time, guys. I think we're going to need to do another show on this here maybe in the next couple of weeks. We've got about 30 seconds left. I want to thank you, first of all, for joining us on this program today. We will cover more of this as we go down the road. I'd love to get some other people involved in this conversation. We want to thank you for joining us today. This has been The Next Big Idea. And what we care about is creating value in the world. We'll see you on our next show. Thanks for joining us.
Did you ever imagine that these little inventions like radio and the internet, that there was a time when they were considered the next big idea? And yet here you are today, having just heard a program called The Next Big Idea. Peter Gantner is your host. He's one of the founders of kulaBrands, and they can help you whether you've got an idea of your own or you just want to get in on the ground floor of the next big thing. Peter and his co-hosts and guests are here weekdays on Better Living Radio to discuss the ins and outs of creating, manufacturing, branding, and marketing the best of the big ideas. Maybe you've got one, or maybe you want to be involved in one. You're definitely tuned into the right spot. So hear this. You can hear this program weekdays at the same time on Better Living Radio as kulaBrands presents Peter Gantner and the Next Big Idea.